Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. Shona Robertson was presented with evidence and shamed that a patient waited 15 hours in an ambulance waiting to get into the hospital. This is, of course, because of massive and terrible underfunding in the NHS. She's about to do her budget, and this sort of stuff is presented to her. Where does she go with it? Does she accept that this is what people will have to put up with now? Because, of course, the funding for independence is far more important than getting people into hospitals. Or will she decide that actually, since independence is never going to happen, she may as well spend the money on people? Don't hold your breath. We know what the answer is going to be, don't we? We already know. She's already ring-fenced 35 million just for the foreign embassies. Just think how many ambulances that could pay for. How many more hospital beds even? How many doctors? How many nurses? How many more people's lives would be saved? People dying is the price that they are willing to pay. Let's have a look at this story and see what's going on. So before we get into it, we're getting very close to 9,000 subscribers. And if you're one of my regulars who is yet to subscribe, one of the 65% who's yet to subscribe, it would be an excellent opportunity to do so. And see if we can't get to 9,000 before Christmas. It's not far to go, and it would be fantastic. So do please, and it really helps the channel. Anyway, Shona Robertson shamed after patient waits 15 hours in an ambulance in the SNP's NHS. Sitting there, or laying there, I would imagine, for 15 hours. That is absolutely disgusting. People will die in ambulances because nobody can get their arses into a hospital because the resources aren't there. And yet they can find 35 million to source foreign embassies. They can afford 8 million a month on spin doctors. But people are going to die in ambulances because they can't get a bed. That goes to show this woman's ineptitude at her job, but also her lack of any kind of ethics, of morality, or even sort of humanity that she would think the way she does. I suggest that this is actually a crime against humanity. The Deputy First Minister stepped in for the ill Alibaba at FMQs, but faced criticism over some patients waiting more than half a day outside hospitals due to a lack of beds. Now, I will say at this point, why was he so ill? It does make you wonder, doesn't it? Was he really ill, or did he just know that there'd be an awful lot of awkward questions, especially regarding, say, electric Jaguars, regarding Matheson, regarding the tax bans, all sorts of things that he probably didn't want to face scrutiny on, because, you know, it's difficult. So, phone up. Sorry, not coming in today. Got a bad cough. Like we all do. Anyway, Shona Robertson was shamed as she stepped in for an ill First Minister. And it's stepping in. I mean, it's a hard enough job for her doing her own job. To do his as well must have put a lot of stress on her tiny little mind. It was revealed a patient was forced to wait 15 hours outside a hospital in an ambulance. And the Deputy First Minister could only bemoan that the UK government in response to the criticism as she trotted out the take no lectures line again. This isn't the UK government's fault. This is the SNP's fault. They've been in charge of the NHS for 17 years, nearly now. 17 years. And they still are doing this. And they're blaming Westminster. Where's the billions Westminster give you that you haven't passed on? Where's the billions that you've spent on other things that hasn't gone into the NHS? Don't be blaming other people and stop using the sad old hackneyed phrase that, you know, it's someone else's fault. I'll take no lectures. Yes, well, you will take lectures because you're bloody useless at your job. And you're about to sit on Tuesday and do a budget that will destroy the future for so many people because you're incapable of understanding anything, because you're so obnoxiously thick. Honestly, she's like a ski yogurt, only hasn't got the culture. Scottish Tory leader Douglas Ross slammed the SNP executive for its failings in the NHS, as a lack of available hospital beds meant the ambulance was stuck outside the sites for hours. And then, of course, down the road, someone else will have an accident. There's no ambulance available, is it? And this is while ill or injured patients are on board. New figures reveal that 1 in every 10 ambulances were trapped in this situation over the last month. 10% of your ambulances are stuck outside a hospital because there's no bed for the poor bugger in the back of the ambulance to get into. This is a joke, isn't it? But the Deputy First Minister blamed a lack of funding from Westminster for growing issues with Scotland's health service. That, of course, is complete and utter horseshit. She attacked the Conservatives for supplying less cash through the Barnett consequentials. This is despite ministers being given the highest block grant ever this year. Full of it, isn't she? Absolutely full. Oh, I've got no other excuse. I'll just trot out this one. We'll trot out this excuse. It's not true. It's a load of shit, but it's the only thing I've got because I can't stand there and tell the truth, which is that I've whacked the money away on independence over the year. Look at all our shiny brochures. Sure, there's dead people littering the streets, but they're not important, you know. Look, shiny brochures, everybody. That's all they've got. And that's what's happening. And I'm not kidding about the dead people in the street. That is a result of SNP policy. And it will continue. He said, this is Mr. Ross, he said, we've heard reports of ambulances backed up, waiting outside Aberdeen Royal Infirmary, Edinburgh Royal Infirmary, Ayrshire's Crosshouse Hospital, and many more. We've received freedom of information responses on ambulance waiting times across Scotland. They show some of the worst turnaround times on record. We can reveal, he said, that an ambulance was waiting outside a hospital in Ayrshire for 15 hours. Another waited over 10 hours in Grampian. And the Lothian Health Board, another waited over 11 hours. When she was Health Secretary in 2015, the Deputy First Minister, he said, promised to eradicate delayed discharge completely. 8 years on, that is another broken promise from the SNP, which is leading to ambulances being held up outside hospitals. And this is what's happening because they don't want to invest in the NHS. They don't want to invest in things that help people. They only want to invest in things that helps the cause of independence. And yet nobody knows why, because independence will never happen. And of course, the more they do this shit, the less likely it's going to happen. People are abandoning the SNP because they're seeing their family members die as a result of SNP policy. And that is the worst of it. You know, there should be many reasons to leave the SNP, but doing so because you're seeing your loved ones die is not the best way, really, is it? Anyway, he described the situation as scandalous, and he highlighted patients who are at high risk of dying due to having heart attacks, and they sometimes had to wait more than half an hour when the response time for purple calls, as they're known, is meant to be 6 minutes. Why should anyone whose heart stopped be waiting for so long for an ambulance to arrive? People are dying simply because the SNP refuse to pay the money where it needs to go and will wank it away on things like glossy brochures and foreign embassies that they don't need. And not to mention, of course, like I say, the £8 million a month spent on spin doctors. There's a lot more that can be done with that money than making those buggers rich. This morning he said, I spoke to a paramedic who wants to remain anonymous. He told us staff morale is at an all-time low. He described waiting in ambulances for more than 5 hours daily with unwell patients in freezing temperatures. He said paramedics want to do more for patients, but staff are considering leaving because the situation is untenable. That is the true state of the Scottish Ambulance Service, which of course is intricately linked into the whole of the NHS, because if the ambulance is stuck there because the NHS can't get a bed for the patient, then other people down the line who need the ambulance are going to die, the person in the ambulance is going to die, and all they were doing is waiting for a bed from someone who's going to be dying in the hospital. And that's assuming they don't die in the bloody waiting list, in the waiting queue in the hospital. That's how bad it is. 25,000 people since Matheson took over. 25,000 people have died on waiting lists. That is a stunning indictment of how bad things are in Scotland's NHS. And she has the balls and the nerve to blame Westminster after receiving the biggest grant ever and after 17 years nearly of running the NHS into the ground with constant year-on-year cuts in real terms. Never once have they had a real term increase in money. And she thinks that she's doing good. She has no idea, but then she's got no morals, no sense, and no damn intelligence. It's not for nothing I say she's got an IQ of 86. You can see it. And certainly, she's got no morals. Anyway, I'm gonna round off there. I'll come up, but it is just awful, the state it is. And then she can't even take responsibility herself. And that's truly the worst of it. Coming up. Now, on Tuesday, Shona Robertson has the opportunity of correcting all this, of saying, actually, no, I won't spend all this money on an unforeseen independence in the years to come. We'll deal with the problems we have to hand now, and she'll sort this out. But don't hold your breath, because that isn't obviously what's going to happen. The SNP are on a dedicated path now to a scorched earth policy. They know they're done. They know they're getting out. They know they'll probably never get back in again. And so if they can leave a desolate wasteland, all the better. It just makes it harder for whoever comes behind them to fix. And I think that's where they are. So they need to go, and they need to go quickly. Anyway, I shall finish there. Thank you very much for watching. Do please hit the subscribe button. It's massively helpful, and we are getting close to that 9,000. Please hit the like. And until next time, stay safe, stay well, and I will speak to you soon. Bye.